All right, guys, today's the day, and I am so flippin' excited. Today, we're breaking ground. Well, sort of. So, here's the thing. When we purchased this property about 3.5 years ago, the original owners had it perked, and they had picked a house site up on the top of the hill, which is really close to the tree line and doesn't give you much of a backyard. So we're actually going to be moving the house down closer to the road. But when they had the house site drawn up with the septic plans and where the well would go, originally this lot had perked for a drip dispersal septic system. And that was kind of in the middle of the property where the septic would be. So anyways, long story short, the original health department approvals for that septic system have since expired, since that was 3.5 years ago. So before we build, we've got to do a new perk test. So that's what's happening today. And I'm really, really excited because we're finally breaking ground. I mean, yeah, it's not really a foundation that you're digging or your driveway, your typical breaking ground, but hey, we're actually breaking open the ground and going to be doing some perk testing today. And I'm really excited to find out the results. You know, I have a feeling we're probably going to get stuck with an alternative system, which is more expensive, just because we have a lot of limestone rock and that inhibits the ability for proper drainage. But I'm hoping that we can do something a little more affordable than the original drip system that it was originally approved for, just because, you know, we're going to be trying some other sites here today that may have a little bit better soils, a little bit better depth before you hit bedrock, hopefully. But we'll find out. We'll see what happens. I'm hoping for a conventional system. Fingers crossed. You know, there's an area on the lot where, according to the soil maps, the type of soil there is the same type of soil that other places in this county have been approved for a conventional. So I'm hoping we could use some of that area potentially. My only concern is some of it is pretty low, and I know you don't want to put a septic in a low spot. And also it's close to the road, and so we have property line and issues, and we can only be so close to that. So we'll see if any of that's usable or not. And if not, you know, we'll probably have to definitely do an alternative. One thing I totally was not expecting that I thought was really interesting is I was expecting to see basically nothing but clay type of soils, which is mostly what we have. However, we actually found there was a spot in the lower end of the property in front where we found sand. This particular hole that is pretty close to our house site, literally like right beside where our driveway is going to be, and go up on that knoll there to our house site. I was not expecting sand. I have never found sand out here before, but we got down to maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet into the ground. We found some sand, because when they dug it up, I was like, what's that white stuff? It looks like sand. And she's like, yeah, the soil scientist, she said, yeah, that's sand. I'm like, really? We have sand out here? And she said, yeah. She said, what it was is most likely it was originally some sandstone rock. And over the years, that rock is broken down, and now it's sand. And that's literally what it looks like. Because it looks like they dug through what, you know, from far away, it looks like a rock, but when you touch it, it falls apart. It's sand. Another area that we found some sandstone was in the middle of the property. I don't know if you can see this, how it kind of glistens, but this is sandstone. And we found it actually broke into a sandstone, actual rock, kind of in the middle of the property. So that was kind of neat too, to see that, because we see a lot of limestone, but not much else. So that was something different. Another thing that I learned, the soil scientist, she was telling me that the clay soils that we see actually come from the limestone. The limestone bedrock over the years breaks down and becomes clay soils. To me, that was like earth-shattering. I had no idea that was even the case, because limestone is kind of grayish, bluish. Clay soils are kind of like a brownish, reddish, you know, depending on the content. So I had no idea that clay came from limestone. But it makes sense, because you always see limestone in clay-rich soils. All right, so we just finished with the perk test, and interesting results. I really wasn't sure what was going to happen. We're going to be alternative still, though. And it's very much similar to what they originally had perked it for and gotten approved with the previous owners of this property. It's going to be a drip dispersal system. They have marked out the site for it, and they're going to put the reserve area right next to it. So what a reserve area is basically where you would put a drain field for your septic should your existing drain field fail in the future and you need to put a new one in. So for our area, we are required to have a 50% reserve area. Basically, that's just a backup septic field location. It's basically up higher on the hill than where they had originally perked to do this type of septic. And the reason why is we actually found a better location for it. See, the original drip dispersal system that they had gotten approved for, they got down to, only 10 inches deep into the soil before they hit bedrock in some spots. This new site, the closest bedrock is 18 inches. We have areas within that location where we went down over 4 feet and still never hit anything, which is fantastic. We could have opted to try a plastic leach field for the septic system instead of doing a drip dispersal, and that would have saved us an estimated $5,000 to $10,000. And what that is basically is a conventional septic with an alternative drain field. But the issue with that is literally on our lot, you can dig a really deep hole in one spot, go over 5 feet, and you dig a little bit and boom, bedrock. So it's so sporadic like that and unpredictable. They were afraid, and I'm afraid, that we would pay someone to engineer and draw the designs for that system. They'd come out here to dig it up and, oh, hey, there's rock, so we have to do drip anyways. Stop the whole project, go back to the drawing board, design a drip, pay for that again, and still have the more expensive system. So I was really on the fence. And so I'm like, all right, can you guys do 2 more holes? So they dig 2 more holes. The first hole they dig, they got 24 inches before they hit bedrock, which is exactly what they need. So I'm like, all right, maybe this is a sign. So before they go digging the other hole, and while they're digging, I'm just like, all right, Lord, and I'm just praying. I'm saying, okay, if we're supposed to do a drip system, let them hit a rock in this hole and not let it go deep enough. If we are supposed to try this trench thing and see what happens, then let them have a good deep hole with a lot of soil. Well, they get down 18 inches and they hit bedrock. So for me, that was kind of my sign. Okay, we needed to go ahead and plan for a drip system here because that's probably what we're going to have to do anyways. And instead of having to spend extra time and money designing 2 systems, let's just go ahead and do with what we know will work. So they're quoting me, they're thinking it'll be somewhere in the range of $30,000 to $40,000, which, yeah, that's a lot of money. But honestly, that's kind of what I was expecting anyways with this lot because it was a drip system. The good news is because we have more soil, there will be a pre-treatment before it gets into the system, but then once it gets, up into the drip dispersal areas, it should be able to go straight into the soil. Whereas before, since it was, only 10 inches in some areas, they were going to have to do another treatment, like a UV treatment with the drip lines around that before it goes into the soil. So there would have been a lot more pieces and expenses with the original plans that they had drawn up, a previous company with the previous owner. So I'm happy with the results in that it is the same type of system, but we found a better location for it, so it won't be as costly as it could have been. And it's still better than, they told me they were at a job that required a mound system just this past week that was $80,000 because they had to haul all of that sand in. Now, granted, they said that was for like a mansion out in Northern Virginia, so they had to have a huge thing for it, but still, they said the mounds are more costly than the drip. And the good thing about drip is it's all kind of a thin little rubber tubing line. And if you hit a rock, no big deal. You just kind of run the tube around the rock and go where the soil is. And so really that fits our lot very well for what we have here. So, it's more money than I want to spend, but it's what I was anticipating on having to spend. So I'm okay with it, I guess. So I'm just looking forward to getting the plans drawn up and, going from there and starting with this build. So if you enjoyed that, hit the subscribe button. We're going to be posting more videos documenting our journey every week.